Hi folks, so over the next 5 weeks, certainly the next 4 weeks, we're entering some of the most electric astrology I have seen over the next 4 or 5 week period. And it starts this coming week. And I can feel myself dive in. Let me just do my 1.5 minute how you can engage with me spiel now, because those of you who've been watching my videos know I'm not doing it at the end anymore. The 3 ways to engage with me, you can watch my videos that I put online for free. You can become a member and see sign-specific videos that are made for your rising sign. You can see them for whichever signs you want, whether you want to see them for your sun, moon, or Venus, but I'm putting them out there for the rising sign. That's in the membership part of the video. Membership's at $6.99 a month. And the third way, of course, is to get a personal reading with me. Informational memberships and readings are in the description box below. I am running 2 specials till April the 7th. There's a $50 30 to 40 minute reading centered around one topic or one subject. Or one question. There is also a $100 60 to 75 minute reading available for the astrology of the eclipses and Venus and Mercury retrograde. Basically, the astrology of March and April and how that pertains to your chart. And then there are my normal readings. You can email me and I'll give you information on that. Okay? I will leave it at that. That is out of the way. Now let's continue talking. Let me just list all the transits that are happening next week. On Monday, the Sun conjuncts Mercury. And we've been talking about the Sun conjuncting Venus a couple of days ago and the Sun getting ready to conjunct Mercury tomorrow. So that we've already been covering. And that's the other thing I want to say. This is the first of my videos you're seeing. I'm no longer doing summaries to get you caught up because it just takes a lot. It's adding more and more time. Just if you find that this video resonates, just go back and get caught up until you're ready. And you do not have to watch all the videos in one go, and you do not have to watch any one video in its entirety in one go. You can break it up. You have the power and you have the control. On the 24th, on Monday, the Sun conjuncts a retrograde Mercury. On Wednesday, on the 26th, and this is all Pacific time, I think, Mars in Cancer squares Chiron. And we know last week I did a video on Mars being direct, getting ready to square Chiron, trine Saturn, trine the North Node, trine Neptune, oppose Pluto, and then move towards trining Chiron and trining Venus. On the 27th, Venus retrogrades into Pisces, which I'm happy about because we really want to wrap up the stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart now. But on the 27th, a retrograde Venus conjuncts Neptune. On the 29th, on Saturday, Mercury retrograde comes into Pisces, conjuncts Neptune, and on the 29th, of course, we have the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. And on the 30th, on Sunday, Neptune enters Aries. Now, Neptune is not entering Aries for good. Neptune is going to retrograde back into Pisces at the end of this year. And Neptune and Saturn really leave Pisces for Aries in February of 26. But Neptune enters Aries. Even all of this is giving you a sense of the content that is going to be coming out this week. When a retrograde Mercury conjuncts the Sun yesterday, he starts a new Mercury cycle. So I do want to do a video on the new Mercury cycle that's starting up in Aries. The Mercury cycle from Sagittarius finishes up, Mercury cycle in Aries begins. And I'll talk about that in a second. But with the astrology now is starting to become very urgent and decisive. And it is, of course, around stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart and focusing on the future that you've been trying to create since March of 2023 in the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini parts of the chart, in that order. So in the Pisces part of the chart, we've had Neptune since 2012. Either you've been wanting to move in a more Neptunian direction, artistic, creative, therapeutic, spiritual, monastic, musical. But Neptune's transit through Pisces also makes it harder to act responsively and to stay on top of our obligations in a disciplined way. and to build and construct things and give them kind of an outer form and an ambitious underpinning, a plan of action, execution. And Saturn entering Pisces since March 23 has been focusing on that. Neptune in Pisces can also bring up issues related to loss in the Pisces part of the chart through deception or gaslighting or Neptunian behavior, or either you are being very Neptunian, playing your cards close to the chest and not giving out the full story since 2012, or this could be others doing the same to you, or it could be some combination of the two, or whatever it is. And Saturn's like, here's what's real, here's what's not real. Let's act in a disciplined manner to process the lessons that we need to process in the Pisces part of the chart and implement the appropriate boundaries. And you might say, why are you saying this when you just said you would not do a summary? I'm saying this because when you have a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury getting ready to conjunct the same Neptune for the final time, because once Neptune moves into Aries, both these retrograde planets and Mars in Cancer will move to conjunct Neptune one more time, and Mars will move to trine Neptune one more time. But at that point in time, Neptune will be in Aries, and it's a different priority. As Mars starts to move towards Saturn, you basically have this crazy collection, intensifying collection in the Pisces part of your chart with Saturn, the North Node, and a retrograde Venus, and a retrograde Mercury. And for this week, Neptune as well. And they're getting closer and closer and closer. So when Mars on April the 4th gets ready to trine Saturn, it's like he's trining all of them. And we know that from the Cancer part of the chart, Mars is supporting the stabilization of the Pisces part of the chart, the concretization of ambitions and plans and the execution on them, handling energy leaks or pending obligations or anything that's giving you anxiety in the Pisces part of the chart by showing up in a responsible, disciplined manner, processing lessons, setting boundaries, taking care of obligations, so that it doesn't spill over in such a way that it threatens those plans that you are trying to lean into and that you find expansive. Whatever you've been trying to do in 23 and 24, a lot of trying to get there is focused on the months of March and April of this year. And now the astrology of the next 4 or 5 weeks concentrates it even more. In last week's weekly overview, and indeed in the videos I did since then, including the 2 compass videos I did that seem to have resonated, I said that till about today, you might feel a little bit suspended and confused and exhausted, largely because we have a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury conjunct the Sun, and they combust, and their powers are not available to us. Handling and managing relationships, handling and managing abundance, being able to process and understand what is actually going on and how to communicate about it and how to manage our messaging. All of that with the conjunction, Venus and Mercury are being called into a meeting. It's a little bit like when you're in the office and 2 of the people you were turned to are just not available to you because they're in an offsite with their boss. Venus and Mercury have been having their meetings with the Sun, who is downloaded. And I'm telling, by this point in time, the Sun and Venus have already conjuncted. And tomorrow Venus and Mercury, the Sun and Mercury will conjunct. And it would surprise me if even between Friday and today, Sunday, you aren't clear about. This is why the last compass video I did was called Reckoning, to reckon with yourself, to let the download, to go, this is what is real. Now, I can try to turn this into this, or I can try to turn this into this, or I can work with it this way, or I can work with it that way, or whatever it is, but this is what is real. And right now, I can't get from point A to point B because I don't have all the pathways open for me necessarily. But I have done a certain amount of work in the first 3 weeks of March, and I'm gearing up to do work again starting tomorrow for the next 4 or 5 weeks, and I can feel it. And after tomorrow, the energy is much more forward and managing the Pisces part of the chart, Aries and Pisces part of it. But listen, both Venus and Mercury retrograde by this week go into Pisces. And the reason why I like that is because we need that energy to finish up what we have started with regard to stabilizing or concretizing ambitions in the Pisces part of the chart. Mercury's retrograde ends just after he conjuncts the North Node. And Venus's retrograde ends in the middle of April after she conjuncts Saturn twice. Once retrograde, then she goes direct and conjuncts Saturn again. The conjunctions with Neptune are tricky. They can be positive if you are reconsidering in the Pisces part of the chart, the house that is occupied by Pisces, artistic, creative. If you are concretizing, or if you're working on Neptunian ambitions, artistic insofar as they're inspired by the muses, the artistic inspiration comes from a kind of dreamscape. Music, dance, whatever. Monastic, spiritual, whether you're working with yourself or others and helping them erase egoic attachments and get to a larger or higher or more collectively loving plane, loving ourselves, connecting with others, healing, therapy. If the Pisces part of your chart has your attention in this manner, then the retrograde Venus and the retrograde Mercury, deep breath, may just mean that they are a kind of a peak of assessment. How are things going? Which relationships are working? Who should be in the boat with me moving forward? How do I need to manage resources? Are my expenses and my expenditures and my resources aligned with where I'm trying to go? Or are they a distraction and are they a leak? Am I working really hard to manage all these expenses, but these expenses aren't aligned with what I value, so do I need to make some changes? The same for relationships. In Mercury's case, with a retrograde Mercury conjuncting the Sun, that's happening in Aries, but then moving into Pisces and conjuncting Neptune, there could be a desire to investigate the facts or the truth, or something that comes up that makes you, that exposes you to the truth. Remember, with Mercury retrograde, as I've always said, Mercury retrograde exposes what is built on any form of fantasy. And very often that doesn't come from malice. It just comes from when Mercury and the personal planets are moving direct, we're making plans, but we don't realize how many of those plans are based on fact, but also how we wish things are going to go. And sometimes we just get carried away, and the chariot and the trains and the planes are just flying about. And Mercury retrograde is like, okay, can we just go back and look at a few things and figure out what is real and what actually has legs and what does not have legs? If you're so Mercury retrograde conjuncting Neptune can mean revising, relooking at communications about artistic plans, spiritual plans, but it can also mean continuing to uncover or get to the heart of the matter with regard to what is real and what is not, and what is truthful or what is not, and what has legs and what is not, and have you put your eggs in the right basket and have you not, and information about that is still being processed. It can, with Venus and Mercury retrograde getting ready to conjunct Neptune for the second time, this time retrograde, could mean that something that has been launched, or something that has been moved forward in this artistic creative direction now may need a certain revision. But that would be part of this, okay, we pushed ahead, and is there something that needs to be adjusted? Do we need to go back to the drawing board? Where Venus and Mercury retrograde become a little trickier is if you are dealing with deception and deceptive behavior. Venus conjuncting Neptune retrograde can very much be a kind of pickpocket, or, Venus, our resources, our relationships, conjuncting Neptune, which someone's Neptunian behavior, our own Neptune behavior. Are we stashing away a certain amount of cash? Is someone stashing away cash that should really come to us? There's a revisiting of, for now, a kind of a final way of going. But with a retrograde planet, there is an element sometimes of inquiry. So you might find that you're in a place where, over the next 5 weeks, the astrological energy is such that we're going to come to things in a much more decisive way because we are done, because we've had it. And when Mercury and Venus retrograde are conjuncting Neptune just on the heels of Mars squaring Chiron, we may enter certain situations with a kind of energy of, I need to investigate this, I need to look at this, I need to ask certain questions, I need to gauge the answers, and I need to make my decisions with regard to where I'm setting my boundaries. I need to declare them, but I have only so much energy to give this. And beyond that, I'm moving forward knowing that I've done my best to set those boundaries, and those boundaries will hold to the best of my ability. It has, the astrology of the next has a very, all right, we're ready to be done with this and we're ready to focus on the new. So what do I need to do? Kind of feeling. Mars squaring Chiron on the 26th. And again, you may be feeling this. You may feel a real shift of energy even between Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to today. Mars squaring Chiron is the energy of empowerment. And it's the third square. Mars has been direct and retrograde and finally now direct. And we may, in this attitude of, I'm done, I need to push through, I have 3 or 4 or 5 weeks, I need to make sure that things are, the sails of the yacht are properly tied and firmly tied and everything is in its place, and I need to make sure that things are taken care of. And you might be in that spirit, you might be in that energy. And if you are, Mars squaring Chiron may, I think starting about now and starting this week, you are just going to enter the fray and enter the ring in just a much more empowered and decisive way. Whole, more complete than you were in September, October when Mars first entered Cancer. More decisive, happy in some ways that action is necessary because the status quo will not hold. Happy to move past the midpoint of this period of retrogrades and eclipses. Happy to move past the energy of last week, of not being able to have access to the energy of Venus and Mercury because they were conjunct with the sun and there were downloads taking place. And now you enter this week going, all right, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I know what the priorities are. I'm going to start taking action. Let the chips fall where they may. The sun conjuncting Mercury, let's just go through all these elements again. I mean, the one thing I will say about this particular weekly overview is that at least with the sun conjunct Mercury and with Neptune going into Aries, but even more importantly, with the new moon solar eclipse in Aries on Saturday, there are going to be a lot more videos that are detailed to follow, that will follow. I will do a video on the sun conjuncting Mercury tomorrow and the new Mercury cycle in Aries. I will be doing a video on Neptune entering Aries. I will be doing a video on the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. So those are, after this, at least 3 more this week. So just know that what I'm bringing up here will get expanded on. I actually don't want to say much more about the sun conjuncting Mercury tomorrow. We've already talked about it over the compass videos I did, the last couple of them. Mercury, the planet of communication, is communicating and communing with the sun. The sun is downloading and giving Mercury his marching orders. This is what we know. This is what I know from a source energy perspective. This is what you're aware of. This is what I see is going on. When it comes to communicating, you may actually get past this Mercury-Sun conjunction with much greater clarity with regard to what you want to say in certain situations and how you want to handle them and how you want to communicate around them. and that's a good thing. The fact that a new communication cycle is opening up in the Aries part of the chart at around the same time as the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, and that all of this is kind of taking you to the end of the first week of June and into July, that's all part of this concentration. As I've said to you, when I look at the astrology with a telescope till March of 26 and even 27, even more energy is concentrating from the Aries into the Pisces part of the chart as a result of the eclipses. Although Saturn and Neptune are going to be both moving into the Aries part of the chart. And when I look at it with binoculars, towards the end of the first week of June, there's a lot of focus on the Pisces part of the chart in March and even in April, but starting March 29th and into April, even more in May and June, the focus gets pulled more and more into the Aries part of the chart. And finishing up on these North Node eclipses in the Aries part of your chart, the house occupied by Aries, that have been going on since March 23. And don't worry, I will be talking about this. I'm going to talk about the new moon solar eclipse in Aries. What I want you to be aware of in this weekly overview, as this week continues, is you are in the week before an eclipse. And next week is a week after the eclipse. And eclipsy events concentrate around the week before and after an eclipse, and in the case of the solar eclipse, the week before and after, 2 months after that eclipse. That would make it May 29th. We are in the dark of the moon. We're going to lose energy more and more and more as we head to the 29th. And by the time you get to the 27th, 28th, things may feel depleted, hopeless, exhausted, anxious, stressful. Just know we go through this every 28 days. The new moon happens and we get the energy back again. In a couple of days, the moon getting darker is going to go over the sign of Pisces, closing out the month of Pisces that started with the new moon on February the 27th. And then the moon will enter Aries and begin the new moon solar eclipse in Aries at the 9 to 10 degree mark, where both Mercury and Venus went retrograde. So starting to push the energy past whatever it is in Aries, Mercury and Venus were able to move towards, in February and March, but then went retrograde. We are getting past the midpoint of Mercury and Venus retrograde and the eclipses. And now, between now and the end of April, it is time to start to get things done. And I think we can feel it instinctively and even energetically. As I said, some of the uncertainty and the confusion of last week is giving way to, well, things might still be confusing, but here's how I'm going to deal with them. As both Venus and Mercury slowly start to clear the sun. So Sun conjuncts Mercury tomorrow. We will do a separate video on the Mercury cycle in Aries. Mars squares Chiron on Wednesday. Venus conjuncts Neptune on Thursday. Watch the next 4 days. And if you feel like you're ready to make some inquiries about arenas where a certain amount of loss has occurred, or there's a certain amount of paranoia about loss, or Neptunian fogginess, or you feel that someone is not acting in a completely clean way, or something needs to be watched for, or looked at, then keep your wits about you. And if you need to start acting to manage that, or communicating to manage that over the next 3 or 4 days, by all means, just see what makes sense to you and dive in and do it. Because 2 days later, Mercury enters Pisces and conjuncts Neptune as well. And the new moon solar eclipse happens in Aries. And then the next day, Neptune moves into Aries. So a week of starting to take empowered, disciplined, self-protective, protecting our ambitions and interests, and also sorting things out finally, even where there's confusion, declaring intentions, taking action that is just clearing the path of unnecessary drama, inquiring where there's confusion, and getting clear on the facts. And if people still continue to be murky, to just kind of setting the appropriate boundaries and moving on. It's not without its pressure, It's not without its anxieties, but there may be a sense of the anxieties, appreciating the anxieties as helping us set the priorities that we need to set and manage. It's interesting, we are in a week before the eclipses, and it's the new moon solar eclipse in Aries that is the most important event that is occurring this week. But my attention is taken by that retrograde Venus and that retrograde Mercury conjuncting Neptune in the last degree of Pisces. Whatever that Neptunian energy has meant to you in Pisces, it's coming up again in such a way that it's encouraging you to separate the wheat from the chaff. So whatever you need to do to continue to see what is real and what is holding with Neptunian ambitions, but particularly assessing and managing the consequences of your own inability to show up in a disciplined and self-protective manner in the Pisces part of your chart. Managing that, dealing with the consequences, that I would put energy around that. The new moon solar eclipse in Aries will bring its eclipsey things, and if there are opportunities you want to avail of or you want to move forward on, by all means do it. Move forward with them. Do what you need to do. Respond to those opportunities. But the new moon solar eclipse in Aries, it's really next week that we're going to be in that energy. Right now, with Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde conjuncting Neptune in Pisces, just before Neptune moves into Aries, it's still very much, there's still a lot of pressure and priority around stabilizing that Pisces part of the chart and bringing out that to-do list that we had around doing that, and feeling like, as I said, you're gonna enter this week, and you're gonna come into this week with a sense of greater confidence in exercising control over your life and matters. And I think that that is the right energy. And even where there's confusion, you might just be like, you know what, I need to get this done, I need to get this done, I need to get this done. This is the priority, this is what needs to go in this place, this is what needs to be here, this is what needs to be here. In the absence of somebody else or others showing up in a way that's clear, you might be in a place where you're just like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're going about it. Okay, I will leave it at that. I will leave it at that. There's more content that needs to be worked on, and that is going to be coming out this week. So let's just leave it at that, and take a deep breath. Have a good rest of the Sunday, or if you're watching this on a Monday morning, hopefully this energizes you as you're setting priorities with regard to how to move forward and what to do. And we will continue to be in touch. You can contribute to the channel. There's a thanks button underneath the channel, so you can use that to contribute to the channel. You can contribute to the channel by donating to it. Information is in the description box below. You can contribute to the channel for free by liking this video, by commenting on it. If you feel so inclined, it gives a greater circulation on YouTube. You can tell your friends about the content on this channel if you find it useful. Ask them to subscribe. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. When you subscribe, there's that bell icon next to it. Click the wiggly bell on top of the drop down so you're notified whenever I do new videos. Information on readings, memberships in the description box below. I will leave it at that. Thanks for watching all my content. I feel like there's been enough content in the last few days that this can come in digested. There's a marked change in direction with this particular video and the last two compass videos, and that just has to do with the fact that Mars is getting ready to square Chiron, and there's something about a retrograde Venus and a retrograde Mercury conjuncting Neptune that's just going to prompt, that necessitates. Don't sleep on it. If you feel like you need to start doing things, start organizing and sorting things out to the best of your ability, then, because as I said, when I did an earlier version of this video that I stopped within 30 seconds because I was going to say we're entering a 2-week period, and then I was just like, no, it's a 3-week period, and then I was like, no, it's a 4-week period. You know, it really goes all the way to the 3rd week of March, when we have Venus conjuncting Saturn for the final time after she's direct. And that happens on the 24th of April. And then on the 26th, Mars opposes Pluto. It's really all the way to the Taurus new moon on the 27th. It's just one big blob of energy of, you know, it's the imagery I get is there's a path full of brambles or mess, or you've entered a room that is overwhelmingly messy. It's like, do you know when you move into a house or an apartment and there's one room or one storage closet where everything was put in, and now you've entered it and you just like, I have to cut a path through these brambles. I've got to sort out what I've got to sort out. I've got to create the space that I've got to create the space. I need to start focusing on the new, but I've got to end the old and manage the old for once. And that is the energy. And I think it's the right energy. And it has an empowerment to it. It has a sense of confidence to it. Do what you feel you need to in order to get clarity and set boundaries. And if it's a positive thing with the Venus and Mercury conjuncting Neptune, and you are reconsidering, going back to the drawing board on Neptunian ambitions and plans, and that's a wonderful thing. You've come so far and you're just like, the right people involved, and do I have the right people in the boat with me, and do I have the resources in the right way, and, you know, fair enough. All right, I will leave it at that, and more to follow. Take care.